and we're like 9 minutes early. So I'm not even sure if anybody's going to be here because it doesn't normally go this fast. So we'll see. Okay. Let's see. And my internet is now being weird. Oh my gosh. That's weird. Now I'm, oh jeez. Now I'm getting a message saying YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. I have no idea why that would be. Let me try shutting down some other tabs. Like that shouldn't make a difference though, right? Martine has written, or maybe this was before, that it had a thumbnail of me sleeping on my couch. I sincerely hope it did not, because that is really super weird if it did. Yours is loading at the moment. I that's so weird. I don't know what the issue is. I upgraded my internet. I restarted my modem like 2 weeks ago. So that shouldn't be it, or rebooted it or whatever. But we'll see. Tree is here. So we're still early. Really? You had that thumbnail too? What in the hell? Like, I don't even know how that's possible. Because I always leave, because I record on my laptop and I leave it like right here. I don't even take it down. that's like, I don't know. That creeps me out big time. I'm glad it was cute, but that is like, how does that even happen? Was it just random images that the thumbnail was like pulling out of my picture gallery or something? How weird. Weird. We did a live stream. Was it last week? That was a whole. So, but that was I was like a totally different feed and everything. Oh, Hippico, like he says, do you want to see the picture? Um, yes, I do. I'm nervous to see it because that's so. I don't even think I have a picture of me sleeping on my couch. Like, that's what's weird about that. Yeah, Periscope was fun last week. Yeah, I still have a lot to learn with with Twitter and Periscope and all of it. So, Lauren is here. Welcome. You made it. You made it. That's exciting. Twitter and Periscope are like the last frontier. Well, that's a lie. I was going to say that the last frontier, but I understand Snapchat even less than I understand Twitter and Periscope. And Google Hangouts. I don't understand Google Hangouts either. Even though Spartan Life Coach and I did a Google Hangout, he had to send me the link to it and everything. I didn't know what I was doing. Trisha is here. So welcome. We're still a few minutes early. Hopefully this live stream thing holds. So I'll just catch you guys up to speed on kind of what I'm thinking might work better, because this, we go through this every single week, and I don't understand what the problem is. I am thinking, and I have to play with this week, but I can live stream through my Facebook page. And I think that might be a lot easier for people to find me. So I'm thinking this is my idea. Like, this may or may not be a good idea, but this is my idea. To live stream through YouTube and then live stream through the Facebook page too, simultaneously. So double the possibility for a technology train wreck. is that so? I don't know. In theory, that would be cool because I think more people would be able to find it, but we'll see. Overcoming Understanding says she falls asleep at 9 o'clock and gets up at 5 a.m. That is so responsible of you. I get up at 6 a.m. and I have the worst sleep schedule ever. You would are way better at being an adult than I am. I could take pointers from you because that's like what you do. Your life is what is like my New Year's resolution. Like that's what you're the person I want to be. Like that's that. I would love to have that motivation. I've tried and I just can't seem to I don't know. I can't seem to motivate myself enough to go to the gym that early. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Overcoming Understanding says, as far as the Facebook live stream goes, I wouldn't be able to join because I want to stay anonymous. That's a really great point. I wonder. I will have to play around with it because I've never done a Facebook live stream. I have no idea how it works. I have, I'll have to play around with it and see. It's not easy. Oh, fantastic. I'm hoping you're talking about the gym and not the Facebook live stream. I know the gym. I know getting to the gym at 5:30 in the morning is not easy. Like, that's super impressive. So let's see what. Oh, I was going to tell you. Well, so last week was this YouTube channel's 1 year anniversary. So I did a 1 year anniversary video for it. I don't know if you guys saw it, but that was super exciting. In Overcoming Understanding, a lot of it was kind of what you and I had discussed about kind of just mentioning certain things about starting a YouTube channel and some of my lessons along the way. There's been so many with all of this. Valenta is here and says, hello, Dana, and all nice people here. I am in a sleepless. Lauren says she's been off of Facebook for 3 years and haven't missed it at all. Yeah, you know, it's funny because different people use social media differently, you know? And I have a lot of friends that, I go on there and I check my timeline and I'm in this support group every single day. So I'm there. That's kind of how I use Facebook. I don't go to other people's timelines and stuff because I either talk to them and I already know what's going on or I know it's fake. So like I don't even, I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. Hot Potato said the white background story was funny with the 1 year anniversary video. Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember those videos, but they were really bad, like really bad. And the lighting was terrible and it was just everything about it was bad. So, and then hopefully, right? Like hopefully next year we'll look back on these videos and be like, wow, these were really, really rough. I hope to keep improving. So what's new with you guys? Anything new and exciting? Did you guys see oh, there's this whole I get my news from like Instagram cuz that's reliable, right? But Elena is here, welcome. Jill is here, welcome. Did you see there was a whole issue with Beyonce and I don't know, some lyrics in her latest song have something having to do with her with what's his name, Jay-Z, her husband, like had cheated on her or is cheating on her, or something scandalous is going on, and she was going after this other gal, and I guess that was like the big scandal of the week. River's song is here. Overcoming Understanding says, my ex told me to stop posting narc memes on Instagram, so I started posting more. That's funny. I don't blame you. I actually got a message on Instagram from a guy. I don't know what the situation was, but his girlfriend ex-girlfriend kept tagging him in all of my posts, and but it was a little bit unnerving to talk to an angry ex like that. Trisha says, yes, I saw that with Beyonce. That was her response to him cheating. Yeah. I guess, my thing with that is, why I know why, but I feel like her anger and venom should be directed at him, not this other woman, right? Like, it's not cool that the other woman was okay with cheating with him, but it's, he took vows to her. Like, he's the one that owes her something, not this other woman. So, but I get it, because that's what we were talking about last time, right? With the whole accountability thing. So if this other woman, if Beyonce were to have appropriate blame in the situation, then she would have to leave. So it's much easier to blame this third person, right? And be like, oh, well, the woman's the problem. So if she can just chase away this woman and put this other woman in her place, then her marriage would be okay. Because then the problem is now on the other woman. So if the other woman goes away, the problem goes away, right? But the problem isn't with the other woman. The problem is with Jay-Z. So, but that's the whole cognitive dissonance thing again. That's the whole like denying, minimizing, justifying, deflecting, blaming kind of behavior. So it's sad because, he's a really public guy, and he like, obviously he doesn't care because, he's not going to hide it. He can't hide it. So it's not cool. I'm not saying that if he could hide it, that would be okay. But Beyonce also had the song, Why Don't You Love Me, which sounds very codependent. I think a lot of songs, all of this, they are very codependent, right? It's very much all about this intense, especially I think with rap. There's kind of this in R&B, right? It's kind of this genre of music where it's this, ride or die kind of mentality, right? It's this like, I am by your side no matter what. And that's really toxic thinking. It's only healthy thinking if you're in a healthy relationship, right? But if you're in a relationship with a person who lies and cheats and steals and manipulates, that's not healthy. That's codependent. So, lots of comments here. Emmanuel, welcome, says, can you agree that all reality shows mostly have narcissists, like Love and Hip Hop, Teen Mom, Housewives, blah, blah? Yeah, I think any type of it's hard to say because how like real those reality shows are, or how like overly dramatic they are for ratings. But I think by and large, any high conflict person most likely has a personality disorder. I think that's pretty safe to say because that's not normal behavior. So a lot of those people would fall within that cluster B category. So yeah, I would say either borderline or narcissist or antisocial. Tree says, "Hey Dana, I wish on your form there was a place for stories of abuse with same-sex couples. As a lesbian, I discovered that a story about a female abused by her female partner is far more validating for me than dozens of heterosexual stories, but it's hard to find them." I think that is a fantastic idea, and I'm going to write this down. So hold on a second. I will get to working on that. I've had, gosh, sorry, my nose itches. I've had maybe a handful of people of same-sex couple abuse stories, and I would agree that's been my experience as well with the same-sex couples that have emailed me, and it's so funny because I got my hair colored yesterday. Thank you. And when I was at Aveda, my stylist, he is gay, and so we were talking about abuse, and we were talking about that, and I was saying, how this is how society tends to have this picture of abuse where it's the female victim and the male abuser, and anything outside of that, so if it's male or female or male victim female abuser, that it like doesn't compute for people and they can't identify it. And what you're describing is exactly what I have experienced with people emailing me, because a lot of times I would get people saying, "This is really strange, but this is my situation. Does this sound like abuse?" Because they were thinking the same thing. And so anyways, my hairstylist was saying that he had also experienced a lot of that within the gay community where, especially, and I shouldn't say especially with men, but his experience was with men. And so he was saying that there's like a lot of guys that don't understand when they're in a toxic relationship. It's just kind of again, it's all of these I guess stereotypes and misconceptions we have, right? Like, oh, well, that person isn't abusive. They're just really high drama because they're incredibly attractive. Or they're just really high drama because they're a hairstylist. Or they're just really high conflict because of, XYZ. But that's not the case. Like, they're high conflict, they're high drama, they're high problematic people because that's who they are. So I will put a shout out to my community and see if people will send in some stories, because I really like that idea. Safarine says, "In your opinion, is it possible for somebody to have Asperger's syndrome and a type B personality disorder?" Yes, it is, because everybody is an individual, right? And so people often do have more than one thing going on with them. So a person could very well just for the sake of example, a person could have Asperger's, they could be bipolar, and they could have antisocial personality disorder, and they could be diabetic, and they could have cancer, and they could have high blood pressure. Just saying. And honestly, like, that sounds kind of like a lot, and really having all of those behavior disorders within one person is a little bit kind of a lot, but having, most people have more than one thing going on with them. So, yeah, yes, it is. However, I would say, but here's the difference, okay? And of course, we're just talking hypotheticals, right? So as a psychiatric nurse, but I don't diagnose people, but just saying, so personality disorders are generally rigid and persistent, so they're ongoing. A person can have that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type personality disorder, I'm sorry, I cannot read. Like I can't read and talk at the same time. Uh, a person could have, a personality disorder, but the personality disorders, like I said, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, they tend to run really hot and cold. And mental illness, like if a person is, if it's being properly treated, they tend to be fairly stable. And then when they're not stable, they tend to be like not stable. And so, and then that instability with them, that is kind of their behavior. So they don't have that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's kind of the big difference there. But it can be very confusing for a while, especially even for clinicians, to really see what's going on, especially if the person maybe has like a substance abuse disorder going on as well. So a person could be, let's say, this is very common, antisocial personality disorder, and they're an alcoholic. And maybe they are also bipolar. I mean, that can happen. I actually have quite a few patients that fit that profile. So it's empathy. The difference with narcissists and especially sociopaths is it's not just lack of empathy, it's very malicious behavior. It's like blindingly self-centered. Whereas generally a person that's on the autism spectrum, if you were to point something out to them and say, hey, that was really hurtful, or or what have you, depending on kind of, again, like where they are on the spectrum, it's more of like a blind indifference. It's not malicious behavior, and it's generally not intentional. Like they're just kind of in their own world. And if a person's really high functioning, then they are able to adjust their behavior. They just don't readily pick up on social clues like a lot of the rest of us do. But so, whereas like a narcissist or a sociopath, it's that like blinding degree of selfishness. It's that jaw-dropping lack of empathy and remorse for others. And they just do what they want to do, and they really don't care. And they don't stop doing it. Like it's all about them. If that makes sense. M. Fisher is here. River Song is here. Better Off Alone is here. S9 is here. Lots of people hopped on. Adrian is here. Yes, that was it. My issue last week was I did the name change for the channel. And so Trisha, yes, this is what happened last week. So I did the name change. My channel was originally called Narcissist Support. And I had always known from kind of day one that was the feel that I wanted from my channel, but that wasn't the name that I wanted. And there's a handful of reasons for that. But I wanted something a lot more empowering, something that was, but still had that feel of support. So yes, the name change, and then there's all this software stuff to make all this work that I didn't update properly. And then it was just one thing after another. So yes, but from here on out, I think we should be good. And I'm also going to see about doing this live stream from Facebook as well, in case this happens again. And we'll just keep going from there. Really, I did not know that. Somebody was saying that the book Psychopath Free was written by a gay man. I did not know that. That's actually going to be our book club book for what is not May, because that's Power of Now. June. For June is Psychopath Free. So fantastic book. I read it a long time ago. That was the book when I first joined a support group and began hearing all this lingo about love bombing and flying monkeys and a lot of the terminology, everybody had said, go read Psychopath Free. And that book was really huge. And I mean, like putting the pieces together. There's been a handful of books. We'll have to get together and write out a list of the books that have been really huge for people, because I'd be curious to see what books have been really. I think that would be really interesting to talk to them and just kind of find out more. Yes, Psychopath Free is so validating. He really does explain it so well. I just huge aha moments, incredibly validating. Adrian says, I love the name Thrive After Abuse. It's inspirational and I feel like I'm thriving now. That's awesome. Love the word thrive. I do too. Have you seen the new logo? I haven't put it on my website yet. I put it on Instagram and I'm working on getting it on my website. Slowly but surely. The logo, if you have to get Patricia Evans on here, there's two or three of her books that I've read. Jim Fisher says, I still don't understand Instagram. It took me a while to really get it Instagram as well, and it's super easy. But I guess it's like anything else in life, right? Like once you know what you're doing, then it's easy. But yeah, you just have to kind of get in there and play around. It's very addictive. I will warn you. It's like, I didn't get Pinterest either at first. And it's a lot like Pinterest. It's a lot like Facebook status updates, but with memes, if that makes sense. Let's see. Better Off Alone asks a question that is not Instagram related and asks, how can I overcome the fear of breaking up with my partner? That is a fantastic question. Well, I guess fear is the fear of being alone? Is the fear of not having any money? Is the fear of having to move out? Is the fear, kind of what fear is holding you there? And I think once you can pinpoint it, then you can better address it. But I think oftentimes if we're not able to specifically pinpoint it, then it's like we're swinging at ghosts, because it's so big and we don't really know what the issue is, that we can't properly address it. But it's kind of what it is. Like at the end of the day, none of us can have a healthy relationship with an unhealthy person. If they're a toxic person, kind of by any name that you want to call them, if they're emotionally unavailable, or if they're manipulative, or if they're toxic or dangerous or destructive or what have you, then there is no healthy dynamic possible. I think what helped me to move on was, I thought I had a really great relationship with both of them, with both Steve and Jack. I thought I had a really great relationship with them until I found out about the double life and the fairy tale turned into a Lifetime TV movie. So their child still being alive, because what came back is going to destroy them. Like, it's evil. That was what was going through my mind with both Jack and Steve, especially Steve, because Jack didn't really, he wasn't really trying to get me back, because it was very, I found out so much information that it was very clear that that was all a very giant manipulation and that the gig was up. Steve hoovered really, really hard, and it was a bunch of future faking and nonsense and lies and ridiculousness. But I kept having to I even had a file folder in my email inbox because he was messaging me because yeah, of course, like the good person, right, who is the Dr. Jekyll, is a really great person, but the bad person is really, really bad. And normal people don't have like radically different sides of themselves like that. So Trisha asks, does anyone know if most narcissists want their supply to chase after them? It seems like most, it depends on more of like the dynamics at play, but it's all a game to them. Whether they're pursuing us or we're pursuing them, it's all a game and none of it's real. It's all a fantasy. S9 says, I was watching someone talk about the history changing and it's completely different. I wonder if you could talk about that. What, I guess, can you tell me a little bit more about history changing? Are you talking like spinning things around or people? There we go. Sorry, this is really glitchy tonight, guys. I encourage people to the biggest tool we have in our toolkit is the power of anticipation. So if we can really get clear on anticipating their behavior and anticipating our behavior, ideally, physically and emotionally, then we're that much more prepared for it. So if we know that they're probably going to pick on us about a certain thing, because a lot of times their behavior's fairly, like, it's predictably unpredictable, if that makes sense. So we know that maybe around holidays or high emotional intensity type situations, that's when they start getting drama, right? And being drama or being abusive or kind of whatever they're doing. Or if they tend to pick on a person about their weight or their parenting or a new job, or they say things to hurt you. It's the same mentality but in an adult body. So if you can just realize that they're saying things that are designed to hurt you, it's not true. It's all just a bunch of talk. And we don't have to let that hurt our feelings. Like I came across a really great meme a while ago that summed it up so perfectly, and it said, keep your feelings and your self-worth in two different buckets. And I loved that. I loved that because sometimes we get caught up and have hurt feelings, but we let it impact our self-worth. And it can't because, especially with these people, because they say hurtful things. And so just because, like, we have the choice to just let it bounce off of us and say, you know what, like, in our mind, I don't accept that reality. Like, that's just a bunch of nonsense. They're saying a bunch of stuff that's going to hurt, and let it go. And let it go. So let me scroll up. Okay, so Saffron says, I'm not sure if he really does have Asperger's, but he shows a lot of symptoms of it. I have a hard time trying to figure out if it was an act. So here's the thing. Even if he did have Asperger's, if whatever he has going on with him impacts your relationship to the point that you can't have a healthy relationship, then it's a deal breaker. So I know that a lot of us will feel obligated. What happens to somebody, even if it's not their fault, right? Like a traumatic brain injury, and now that their personality is radically changed and they attack. It's not their fault, but that doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice your sanity or especially your safety, right? So you've got to do what you've got to do in order to stay safe and sane at all times. It doesn't matter. So if a person, certain that they're a narcissist, because if they're a narcissist, then it means that they won't change and that there's no hope. And that's that kind of like that codependent mindset talking, right? Because, and I have been there and I get it, okay? Where it's this feeling of, but if they're just the run-of-the-mill average selfish jerk, then maybe that's workable. But it says, I joined a group for people living with family members with mental illness. A number of them had partners who were borderline personality disorders and other cluster B. It was really sad to hear. Yeah, a lot of it's really amazing just how many people do fall within that cluster B. And honestly, I think for the vast majority of people that are within that cluster B, it's kind of the cluster that's trauma based. And if you think about it, a lot of people, I mean, most people have had some sort of trauma in their life. And the way therapy, in my opinion, handles it, assuming that a person can even afford therapy, we'll cover therapy. And there's a lot of room for improvement that needs to be made. But it's a tricky industry because it's there's no real follow-up, there's no long-term tracking of people. It's it's not a hard and fast science, right? It's not like accounting or something that's really cut and dry. Like if you do this of improvement within 8 sessions, or a person could be in therapy for 8 years and it never really goes anywhere. And it's hard to tell thesis for somebody to try to sort all that out and to figure out how to make therapy more effective. So let me scroll up here. Yes, I like that. Saffron says, I tell myself a mantra that it's okay to say no. Yes. Yes, it is. It is okay to say no. It's probably really uncomfortable to say no, because I think a lot of us are tended, well, maybe I shouldn't speak for our side of our personality. I am the kind of person, like, I want everybody to win, and I don't want anybody to be hurt. And it makes me sad when other people are sad. So I have done that too, where I've stayed in really toxic relationships and friendships and even jobs way longer than I should have, because I was uncomfortable saying no. I was uncomfortable setting boundaries. I didn't want to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. So, but it's hard, and I think that's the big lesson in all of this. That's kind of the hidden gift, I think, if you will, in these types of relationships, is it brings to the forefront all of the stuff that we need to work on, and in a way that would probably never happen otherwise. These relationships really can be, lots of growth there. Really, frankly, any I was going to say any painful situation, which is true, but any situation that even registers on like the spectrum of painful, so irritating, frustrating, depression, anxiety, fear, anger, rage, discomfort even, which is like more on the mild end, any of those any unpleasant feeling, I'll just say it like that. Any unpleasant feeling is a sign that readjustment, realignment needs to happen. And the more intense the feeling, the more intense the pain and the discomfort or the anger or the rage, the more out of alignment we are. Up our knee, it hurts, and it hurts like hell for the first week or so, because it's inflammation and it's gross and it's oozing and it's throbbing and it's all it, but we see it heal over time. And it's the same thing with healing from these types of relationships. It feels like we're not healing, but in fact we really are. So, and it might happen, it might be and it's often very subtle, like just like your knee getting skinned and it's slowly starting to heal and rebuild. So like signs of healing would be, for me, for example, at first crying like nonstop, and in night terrors nonstop, just awful dreams. I was so exhausted. I'm like, I just want to sleep, and not being able to sleep. And then when I would fall asleep, I was having these awful, really vivid, highly emotional dreams that I would wake up screaming or crying, and 12 times a day. I'm down to crying 6 times a day. And you start realizing, okay, I am making improvement. It is happening. And, so. So let me, Test says, and I'm going to scroll up and see if I can catch that one history revision comment. Wanted to do a video response to that or not, because that kind of nonsense really, 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 really enrages me. And here's the thing. A person could be a quote unquote expert. Like, they can have a PhD in psychology. It doesn't make them an expert. It makes them have a PhD in psychology. To me, and this is what like is so crazy with the educational system, is to me an expert is somebody who gets results. So if you don't actually work with victims and you don't actually get them results, then all you have is a freaking piece of paper that says that you went to school for X number of years and you spent $100,000 on tuition and you don't understand a goddamn thing. Like that's my response to it, because like or what his deal is, but and I think it's really a lot of it's ego, right? So we go to college. I have two college degrees. We go to college. We have this idea of I know what I'm doing now that I have a college degree. I really know what I'm doing. And the reality is, no, you have a college degree. There's a big difference between theory and application. And that's the problem. Like, that's especially the problem in the mental health profession, because the stuff isn't tracked. It's so, like I was saying earlier, if a person's not able, they don't know. Like, do you know if you get results? Because you don't track it, right? So most therapists, how this goes down is a patient might come in, they're coming in crisis. They maybe might stay for 3 sessions. Then the patient leaves. The dude provides some like pretty massive results, and he works with leaders of countries and Olympic athletes and everything. So, yeah, don't get sucked in just because a person has a degree that they're competent. There's no shortage of well-educated and competent people out there. Okay, that was my rant. I'm sorry. So, the other comment that I was going to ironically comment about had to do with emotional detachment. So, appropriately enough, I guess. Yes. So when dealing with a high conflict person like that guy, right? So Ross, and I don't know if this is his terminology or not, but he uses this terminology a lot, and I really like how it's phrased. He refers to it as the observe, don't absorb technique. So a lot of this is, Buddhism. A lot, honestly, like a lot of what works and what we consider modern day psychology is actually ancient Eastern wisdom, which is Buddhism. Like DBT therapy based on Buddhism, cognitive behavioral therapy based on Buddhism. A lot of this is, there's a lot of really good stuff in there. So yes, the emotional detachment. So it's really where you try to do just that. Gray rock, the term gray rock has to do with that as well. So, and that would be why I wouldn't probably do it. If I did a direct response video, I would have to make sure that I was in a place where I could stay cool, calm, and collected, to go toe to toe with nonsense like that. But yeah. So, okay, I'm sorry. M. Fisher says, Dana, Jane Johnson has an interesting question for you. Trisha, okay, I'll have to scroll up about Jane's question. Trisha says the observe, not absorb technique is easier said than done, but it gets easier with practice. It gets easier with practice, and it definitely gets easier with the anticipation. And then if you really realize that they are, their whole goal is to rile you up, and treating them like the 2-year-old that they're being. So a parent knows, right? If they're in the store and that they're walking down the toy aisle, that odds are their 2-year-old's going to pitch a fit. And so they're anticipating that. And so then they're going to be prepared for it. And so if the parent says, if the little Johnny says, I want that toy, then the parent says, hey, you know what? Remember, we already talked about this. We're not getting any toys today. So, let's just keep going. We've got to get our errands done and get home. And then little Johnny pitches a fit, and then the parent is prepared for the meltdown, right? And so then they have already anticipated their response. So at that point, instead of getting really angry and frustrated, because anger and frustration is really what happens when we're caught off guard by something. So if we can kind of anticipate that and be like, okay, my child's having a meltdown, I am if if you've got another person with you or what have you, you can just say, you know what, okay, we're done. Remember we talked about this, and we said no toys at the store, and you were okay with that, and now you're screaming and crying, and so now we need to go. And if the child throws himself on the floor, you pick the child up and you say, okay, we gotta go. You're throwing a fit. This is not okay. And then you carry the child out. And if that means leaving the cart full of groceries, then that, or whatever, then that's what that means. Or however a person wants to handle it. But knowing that like this could happen, or a better way to anticipate that would be to not go down the toy aisle, right? Like just to avoid that altogether. It's the same thing with narcissists, and to plan out as much as possible. So we're not so we may it's more on our terms instead of theirs. So we're not like walking blindly into their emotional traps. So let me scroll down. Let's see. Jane Johnson, I am scrolling up, but yes, please go ahead and repeat the question and I will see if I can find it. Turned on you by the narcissist. This is really, really difficult. And what you're describing, in part, is called parental alienation syndrome. And it's when you have one manipulative parent who does that, right? So they manipulate the children and they turn them against the other parent. So what you can do with that is they're most likely not going to believe anything that you say. So it's really important that you try to have your actions as consistently as possible with your words. And so over time they can see that really, no, the other parent is the one that's inconsistent, and the other parent is the one that's really full of it. And hopefully in time that they'll be able to see that. This is something that a lot of parents of manipulative, partners go through. I would strongly encourage you to seek out an online support group for this. There's lots of them out there. If you're on Facebook, you might want to look up parental alienation syndrome. If you're not on Facebook, Google it and see if there is. Well, if you're on Facebook and you're okay with joining a closed group, which means that people can see that you're in the group, but they can't see what you're posting unless they join the group. If you're okay with joining a group like that, there's several groups, a wide variety of different people in what's worked from them. And it's very validating too, to just realize that you're not alone. You're not alone in that. So even in my support group, if you're a member of that support group, which is, it's, if you do a search question, I think the answer is, it's not a simple answer. Parental alienation is part of what's going on in her situation. And so that would be, I would say that would be a good start with Googling that and researching that and talking to other people that are going through that. And, like I was saying, making sure your actions line up with your words, depending on how manipulated the children are. If you're still able to talk to them. So here's the thing. If you're still able to talk to them, if they are manipulated by the other parent, they are looking at defensive, and it's going to have the exact opposite effect. It's going to make them defensive, and it's going to make them turn away from you more. So all you can do is just keep saying to them, you know what, you guys, I love you, and there's more than one side of the story, and you don't have to pick sides. I know that I know he's your dad, and I know that you love him because he's your dad. But realize I love you too, and that there's just a lot more that's going on that you might not be, that you're probably not aware of. You're just hearing this from your dad's side. And so I want to have a relationship with you guys. I love you guys. You're my kids. You're incredibly important to me. And my door is always open. And just letting them know that. And letting them, providing like a safe space for them where they don't have to worry. Wish there was more, there's more that I could give you with that. I really feel like your best bet is going to be reaching out to other parents that have gone through something similar and finding out what has and hasn't worked for them, and then just to kind of adjust your approach accordingly. But it might take some time, depending on what all he's told them. So it looks like there's issues with the video feed, and I don't know why. Yeah, Been There says, my overt narcissist ex was brainwashing the kids. He was telling them for hours upon end how the divorce was my fault, how I broke up the family, and I cheated on him, which none of this was true. He bought them toys, etc. Yeah, that's, very, very common. And kids, they see this with the child's mind, right? And so they tend to take their parents' word as gospel truth. And it often takes them until they're into their adult years to see the truth of it. Jane is saying it's been 10 years. Wow. Wow. Oh, I am so sorry to hear this. I am so sorry. I can't, oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. I think all you can do is let them know that you love them and that your door is always open, and that you would love the opportunity to talk to them and to open this discussion. And then it's hard, but you might just have to let it go at that, because you can't, you've been dealing with this for 10 years. You can't, you can't force them to. Jill says, my kids are now in their 20s and not living with the ex. They are now realizing just how dysfunctional he is. Yes, it often really does take time. And it's sort of like how when we get tangled up with these people, we just don't even realize that this is a possibility. Like that this level of manipulation and nonsense and crazy making behavior really, or what we even really thought was possible, right? And so it takes us a long time to see it for what it is. It's the same thing with kids. It takes them a long time to see it for what it is too. So, I would be curious. What would be really interesting would be to somehow try to find kids that went through this and how they were able to get unbrainwashed. I would be curious. I wonder how. Scrolling up here. Been There says, Jane, it's been 19 for me. Wow. Yeah, and narcissists do such a great job at being, they're so, and I think it's because they really do believe that they are the victim. They really do believe a lot of this. And it's not, yes, like the kids are pawns in their game, but it's part of their sickness. Like they have this level, they have this level of entitlement. They have this level of selfishness. It's like a 2-year, again, it's like a 2-year-old, right? Like if a 2-year-old feels wronged, if they do not get ice cream for dinner, if they do not get that toy at the store, they throw a freaking fit and they feel totally justified in it, because we are so mean and cruel that we didn't do what they wanted. We didn't do what they wanted us to do. And I think a lot of it is like that when we're dealing with, especially more of like the overt narcissists, because they are incredibly reactive, versus more of like the covert narcissists or like the sociopaths. those people, I think, are a lot more conniving and plotting, and things are a lot more planned out. And I do think a lot of this is more intentional with them. And they just, I mean, it's just all a big game to them. And imagine, I am so sorry. It's locking up and it's ridiculous. Trisha says, I think comparing narcs to 2 to 4 year olds is so spot on. Jane says, the kids are just so mean. How do I deal with the disrespect? Are the kids, do they visit you? I guess, what kind of, like, to what extent do you guys still have? The kids are so mean. How do I deal with the disrespect? Well, I think it depends on what all is going on in your house. And of course, every kid is different, you know? And there's a lot more to it, but dealing with the disrespect is going to be setting boundaries, and setting boundaries with love, and letting them know, it's just like dealing with a 2 year old. It's, hey, I said this, and this is, oh, they live with you as well. Yes, suggests, been there, says setting limits. They need and want to respect you. So this is a very normal reaction when kids go through trauma. They lack the vocabulary, and they lack the emotional insight, really, up until we're like 45. Right? So it's not just kids. I think it's people in general, because it isn't taught. And maybe this will help to see it in this way, that children, by them acting out, it's them saying, look at how hurt I am, look at how much pain I'm in. And so if their world is a lot of chaos, to let them know, okay guys, we're gonna start doing some stuff. We're gonna start having family meetings. Like, things around here are going to change. And they're gonna change because I love you guys. And you just letting them know. Like, it's like the dog whisperer, like Caesar Milan would just be like, okay, like, this is how it's going to be. I am the pack leader, right? Like, I am the pack leader. This is what's going on. I'm setting some boundaries here. These are what the consequences are going to be. And we need to get this family back into shape. If you guys are upset with me, I get it. It's okay. You can be upset with me, but this is how I expect for you to handle it. And this is how I expect for you to not handle it. Like, there will be no more name calling. There will be no more, kind of whatever they're doing. Then letting them know, like, setting that boundary, and showing them, this is how I deserve to be treated with respect. I treat you guys with respect. I deserve it as well. And yeah, I'm trying to think of what my mom did, because my mom went through a lot of this with me and my brother. My brother especially was a really, really, really angry kid. And she really did a good job. She went through a lot of behavior. It is not going to be tolerated. This is going to, because the way, if this train is already off the track, you've got to come from a place of strength, not from a place of fear, with interacting with these kids. Are they in any type of, like, extracurricular activities where they can learn discipline and discipline and respect? They need a solid male role model, is what I would say that needs to happen. Bear is here. Welcome, Bear. It's like the most like toughest name ever. Pink Pixie is here. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of people that are talking about, hitting their children and spanking their children and this, that, and the other to get them back to counseling, but they refuse. Okay, so I would say if they live with you, then this is not a suggestion. This is what's going to happen. So I would say, you know what? Here's the deal, guys. If this continues, not even that. I wouldn't even use it as a threat. I would say, here's what's going to happen. This family is way off track. I love you guys. And so what I would like to see you do is each of you needs to pick an activity. I'm thinking maybe, Tai Chi or karate or some sort of martial arts that really focuses on discipline and respect. So these are your options for what's going to happen. And just making it mandatory. Like, this is not up for debate. Like, this is what needs to happen because you guys have no respect for me. I am your mother, and this kind of nonsense ends now. So it's easier said than done. It really is. But I will tell you, so in my own life, just to give you some background, like I said, my brother and I went through a lot after my parents' divorce. I was 13. Is that right? I was right around, I think I was 13. My brother was 11. We moved out, my mom and I moved out of state, and my brother stayed behind. And he went back and forth between two different states for several years. And I went back once and then realized, and then when I did move back, I moved back when I was 18 for a year to try to make amends, even though it wasn't my amends to make, right? He said that he was going to get a larger place to live, and he didn't. And so I slept on a couch for a year while he and my brother had their own room, and I lived out of a suitcase for a year in the living room. And my dad makes really good money. Like, there was no excuse for that behavior. So the point of all of that is there was a lot of boundary issues. There was a lot of anger. There was a time my brother, when he moved in with us, he was such an angry kid. There were times he would lock himself in the bathroom and wouldn't go to school and would threaten to kill my mom, would threaten to kill himself. This one time she called the cops. They had to come over and get the door down. He kicked a hole through my bedroom door one time. He was a really, really angry kid. And I was angry house that I really saw her healthy boundaries for what they are. And so I think all you can do is all you can do. And all you can do is set healthy boundaries. You can try to be the example and model what healthy boundaries are, model what self-love is about, keep that door open. I would encourage you to try to spend as much quality time as you can with your kids. I know that they're older, and this can be hard when they're older and kids want to be on like their iPhone and playing video games or whatever, but try to institute some sort of like family date night, where you guys do something quality time together. So if your kids are really into video games, think if you can learn to play some of these video games and play with them, or take them out for a soda, take them out for lunch or something, and just be there, and see if you can have to try to develop that quality time with them, and if that will help, because it's tough. It's tough. And it's tough when you're dealing with angry teenagers, and teenagers are difficult enough as it is. She's saying, my youngest has recently been arrested for violence, and it's hard to figure out what to do. Yeah, it is really tough. I would sit down with your youngest, and I'm sure you've already done this, when he needs to be going to therapy. Like, this is what needs to now happen. And yes, they're going to think that you're cruel and mean and totally unreasonable. And then you can say, you know what? You can think that, but I'm acting from a place of love. And if I didn't care about you guys, I would let you just destroy the house and be awful to me. But it's because I care enough to actually have rules, that I care enough for you to not throw your life away. And I really sincerely hope that someday you see that. and just try to nip it in the bud as soon as possible. It really is hard, I think, especially when there's not a strong male role model around. There is a story I heard a while back. I thought it was so interesting. This is a true story. At least I think it's a true story. But where, was it some sort of researchers, I want to say in Africa, were they were trying to figure out like what on earth was going on. Like why were these young elephants doing this? And they were studying, I mean, they were like, is it a virus? Is it, like what is making these young elephants act so berserk? And what they found was that a lot of the male elephants had been killed. They'd been killed by poachers, and so they didn't have this male influence to teach them how to act. And so what they ended up doing is they ended up bringing in male elephants from other herds, and once they did, then the younger elephants were a huge fan of. Oh, yes. And Pink Pixie says, he or she will push limits. It's a teen's job. I agree completely. And I think realizing that too, a teenager's job is to try job is I need you guys to see that. And I need you guys to help out, Yeah. Pink Pixie says, look into the Big Brother, Big Sister program. They have a lot of mentorship. If you have a teacher or a coach, I would agree completely. If you can find some sort of solid role model in there. Jane says they've been programmed by the narcissist's family to talk with or talk to anyone not associated with narc family. Yeah, I would say just it's going to be tough because you are swimming upstream. Like you've got a lot of these really toxic influences, right? If you cannot, I wouldn't even get into that with the kids. I would just try to find, like, try to crowd out those negative influences, and crowding them out by surrounding them with positive influences, which is where programs like that can really come into play. But yeah, holding your ground. It's like, you know what? Here's the deal. Like, these are the rules of that under your own roof. And wishing them light and love, and then letting them go. And if they want to change their behavior, then they can come back. Jane says, yeah, we tried a few times, and once they told the narc dad and family, they decided to go against it. I thought they lived with you, though. So if they live with you, again, I would say it's not up for a vote. The dad doesn't have to take them when they're there. Like, I would anticipate that happening, because that's how narcs don't co-parent, right? They counter-parent. And it's all about power and control with them. So it would be really cool if you could, if the kids were to find something that they really enjoyed, that they actually found themselves wanting, we'll do that. Kids will set up a lot of these like win-lose dynamics. A lot like what Pink Pixie was saying earlier, a lot of times this is very normal for teenagers. Like this push-pull, this ongoing power struggle is really, really common with teenagers. It's part of it. So, it's do what you can do. So, it's a frustrating situation, and I'm sorry. It's a lot. If I were you, I would encourage you to get involved with some groups that can give you support on this, either online or possible, parenting groups or codependency groups, and the reason I say that with codependency groups is a lot of them really do work on boundaries. And this would be a great like in-person group where you can bring up these parenting issues and you can get advice and feedback from people that are probably going through similar things. Yeah, Pink Pixie, I agree. Says stay consistent, take care of yourself, stay as calm as you can. Perhaps you could get into therapy for yourself. These issues are super stressful. Narcs are seen for who they are. They are super stressful, and you can only do what you can do, and you know, definitely take care of yourself in all of this, because you know, that's again, that's part of it. Like that's all you can do. So if you are at your wit's end, then it's time to really like work on your self-care, work on, you know, if you feel like that you need to get into therapy for you, if you feel like you need to do some self-care for you, whatever that might be, then that's what you need to do. And hopefully this is a stage, and hopefully this will pass over, and you know, it's tough. And then the narcissist is like, oh yeah, sure, you guys can just do whatever, and if there's a bedtime at your house and then there's no bedtime over there. So it's hard when you're counter parenting with a person like that, because again, it's all about gaining power and control over the situation and over the kids, and it's not about what's in the kids' best interest, it's what's in their best interest, because these people are wired. I have not, but I will make a note of that. Mind sight. Dr. Daniel Siegel. Oh wait, let me scroll down. Yes, great advice. Pink Pixie says, when the plane is going down, you've got to put on your own oxygen mask first. Otherwise, you can't help anyone else. Yeah. Turn 18, you know, and then you'll have a lot more peace in your home once they do move out. And if they want to go act like that, they can act like that under their roof, or they can go act like that at their dad's house. They will. Here's the thing, because if you're afraid of setting boundaries, thinking that that's going to run them off, it's not. It's not. If there's no boundaries, then there's no respect, and then you're going to continue to be their emotional punching bag. And it's really important to just let them know, like, hey, you know what? I value myself, and this is how people that value themselves act, and this is how things are going to be when you're at my house. So, hold on. Sorry, my lips are chapped here. So, yeah, if there's, maybe if you haven't already joined some divorce groups, support groups, those I would think would be really helpful too. I don't think there's like one simple solution here. It's going to be a combination of different things. And it's anybody's. B says, sorry, just hopped in. Am I forever traumatized from my ex-narcissist? I stopped contact 2 years ago, and I still feel panicked at the thought of dating. Is this normal? Trauma? But I think a big part of making that choice on how we handle it is being able to identify we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but identifying what the fear is. Like the more specific you can get, hate is learning to have faith in your own judgment, and learning how, if you are having some fear about things, to get specific about it so then you can address it, and learning how to make yourself feel safe. Because the hardest thing I think with that CPTSD is it can just feel so pervasive, like it just impacts every single aspect of your life, and it's hard. And I get it, because I had it too, where it's like you don't know the live stream thing. it has nothing to do with me that I'm aware of. um, so hold on a second. I just want to, I don't even know if I should mess with this real quick here. Okay, I'm not going to mess with it. I don't know why this video output is so low. That is so strange. Strange. Okay, let me scroll up. So I'll share with you a little bit about my experience with dealing with CPTSD. So after everything came crashing down with Jack, I didn't know what was, I didn't know, like, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I had gone through. I didn't know what was real. I didn't know if I was being, because I couldn't pin, I didn't know for sure. Like, I didn't, because our relationship was very different. It really ran the course of like Lifetime TV. It ran the course of fairy tale. I wasn't feeling well for at least like the last 6 months of that relationship. And then I don't have it around. I found actually like last year, maybe 8 months ago, a drawing that he had done. He used to do these drawings. And one of them was me sitting on the couch reading a book. And in the corner of it, I shared this before in another video, in the corner of the drawing was a snake that had eaten a person. So there was like a silhouette of a person in the snake. And he'd made some sort of comment that wouldn't it be weird if a snake ate you or something like that. What's weird about that, there's a couple of things that are weird about that, right? But one of them was that I didn't think it was that weird at the time. I mean, I thought it was weird, but I didn't think it was dangerous. It wasn't until after I found out about his double life that I just happened to just randomly stumble across. I was blown away because he was my best friend. We did everything together. We had this amazing life. It was great. And so when that came crashing down, that really, I had a bunch of night terrors. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't want to be around friends and family. I had spoken to his ex-wife and I found out that he had this pattern of doing this. Everything that he'd said to me was a lie. He said he'd been in the military. That was a lie. He said he had been this entrepreneur. That was a lie. He said that his wife had cheated on him. That was a lie. Everything he'd said was a lie. And his ex-wife had told me, she said, this guy is not who he seems. Their marriage lasted, I think, like a month or two. And then she filed for divorce because he had upped and quit his job and she was supporting him, which is exactly what he had done with me. And of course, didn't say that he'd upped and quit. He had the story that he'd gotten fired and it was a bunch of nonsense. Anyways, so I was having all of these night terrors. I couldn't trust anybody. I didn't want to be around friends or family. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. People were making it seem like I was just overreacting. And I just had this, I'm like, no, this is not like this normal, quote unquote, normal situation where this person was cheating. Like he'd been cheating with like dozens, if not hundreds of people from day one. And it was just, all of it was just crazy. It was just crazy. And it really, really, really rattled my faith, especially in dating. And so for that first year after that relationship ended, like I said, I avoided people, even friends. I just didn't know who to trust. And I had a guy friend of mine, because I would always tell myself, or I would always call myself, I'm like, oh, I'm a hot mess. So if any guy even was flirting with me or would even come, like, wasn't even in the ballpark of possibly asking me out, I made it very clear, like, oh, no, you don't want any of this. Like, I am a hot mess. Girls, like college age girls, walked up to me and asked for directions to like another bar. I had no idea the place that they were talking about. this is like shows where my mind was. I became so paranoid by that. I had asked him, I said, did you know those girls? And the guy was like, no. And I realized at that moment, like, okay, I'm not healed enough to be dating, because I had also found out with Jack that he had been introducing me to a lot of people that he'd slept with, under the guise of that they were coworkers or that they were friends or that they were guests of this hotel that he was working at. But again, it was all a lie. It was all just to slowly rub it in my face the whole time. I mean, it was just crazy. So it was very discouraging to realize that I wasn't ready to date. And, and then if you're familiar with my story, so that I ended up dating another guy. I dated like 3 problematic men in a row. I dated Jack. I dated this other guy that I don't really mention this relationship a whole lot, but I won't say his name because it's a very unique name, but I'll call him Tom. Because I knew it wasn't really a sociopath. So in the whole double life and the whole nonsense, I'm not saying this to scare you. Okay. I'm just saying that, what the big lesson for me in this, and I think a lot of people have this happen, if we've been in a really big time problematic relationship, it's understandable that we're going to go try to do the exact opposite, right? And I see this a lot. So I see a lot of times people, if they're with like an overt narcissist where there is a lot of that grinding down and that emotional abuse and the diminishing behavior and the gaslighting or physical abuse, if there's that kind of stuff going on, that they go and do the exact opposite, and they get really caught up in the love bombing, which tends to be more of the covert narcissist's MO. And then they don't realize where they went wrong. But where they went wrong is that behavior isn't healthy either. So I think it really helps to know yourself, because if you know yourself and you get to the place where you trust your judgment, and there's no shortcut to that. So trusting yourself, trusting your judgment, then I think you'll have a lot more peace with dating. Because I actually have this very similar question has come up a couple times in the support group lately. And with dating, and I kept thinking, well, but everybody's got some red flags, right? And no, that's not true. So I was glossing over his red flags. I thought, you know what? He's such a nice guy. All my friends loved him. He was witty and funny and charming and like the total package. And I must have issues. And I listened to other people instead of listening to myself. That because I didn't trust my judgment. Or I think once and that takes time. And you might have some dates that are flops, and you might come across some other emotional manipulators, and realizing that it's okay. There's lots of people out there. There's lots of really good people out there, and there's lots of problematic people out there, but that you can handle this because you've already handled getting out of a really bad relationship, right? A really abusive relationship. So if you've already gone through all of that, you can get through anything. And so this is where just taking it slow comes in. So, and here's something else. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I know for me, for the longest time, I let the other person like decide on the pace and the speed of the relationship. There was so much stuff that I used to do that I look back on it and I just think, like, what was I thinking? Like, for example, I felt obligated. If somebody wanted to kiss me by the end of like the first date, I felt obligated to do that. And that's ridiculous. So if you're not comfortable, don't do anything that you're not comfortable with, is what I'm getting at. So if you're not okay with kissing somebody on a first date, you can let them know. Like, hey, you know what? Just letting you know, like, I don't kiss on the first date. Or if they want to text you or call you all the time and it's comes across as clingy or needy or whatever, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. So you don't have to spend 3 hours on Skype or on the phone if they want to. Like, you can say, and I would encourage you to say, these are my boundaries. Like, this is what works for me. I really enjoy your company, but I've got to, I've got to get to bed, or this is the stuff I've got going on, and to hold your ground. So yeah, Trisha says, Libby, the more you trust your gut, the more you realize your gut is never wrong. I mean, it really, really isn't. It's right. That's why I have this dove, my piece. That was the big, like, probably like the biggest takeaway from these situations for me, was when I was looking back on everything, because I was making myself nuts trying to figure out, what did I miss? What did I miss? Like, how does this keep happening to me? Like, I don't understand it, because I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. So what am I missing? You just, I think, like I said, I think the more you get in tune with yourself, the more you're going to attract other people around you that are more in tune with who they are. So it's like the whole thing, like, water seeks its own level. The healthier you get, the healthier other people, like, the healthier your inner relationship gets, the healthier your outer relationship gets as well, with everybody, with your friends, your coworkers, your significant others, and so on. I don't know if you've seen the video I did about empty buckets, but that was another really big aha moment for me. And I think it's a big aha moment for a lot of people. So for me, the CPTSD stuff, because I couldn't figure out how, like, what signs did I miss? And that was really rattling, like, trying to figure out, well, how did I misread the situation so bad? Like, I didn't get it. And that was just really, really unnerving. And realizing how they got into my life, like, what my vulnerability was at that time, was that I had walked around for a long, long time feeling very unloved and very ignored. Those were the kind of the empty buckets that I was carrying around. And so when I came across these men that were just like Prince Charming, with telling, just, man, like that soulmate connection that tends to happen very quickly with emotional manipulators. When that soulmate connection was there, I was so starved out that I would just drank it up. I ate it up. I was totally starved out. So once I realized that, oh my God, that's how they're getting in. Like, that's the cracks in my armor, right? Once I realized that, bringing awareness to that really helped me to realize, okay, I need to go do things. I need to spend more time with friends. I need to learn how to fill those buckets before I start dating again. And it took me, a handful of still like dating the wrong people, to really, really learn that lesson. And there are no shortcuts to that. In getting to the place, because if we date when we're lonely, if we date when we're feeling like unloved and unimportant, then the odds of us getting in another unhealthy relationship are really, really high. So, we have to have, like, there has to be, and it's so cliche, but there has to be the self-love before, we have to love ourselves before other people can, because our relationship with ourselves is how we teach other people to treat us. So if we don't treat ourselves with respect or dignity, other people aren't either. That was a huge thing for me, like, huge aha moment. So let me scroll up. I've blathered on long enough here. Pedophiles, they manipulate children, and it's very much the same way. So all manipulative people tend to manipulate in the same types of ways. I call it, there's an acronym I use, call it ICHIVE. So it stands for I need to write it down. Isolation, charm, hope, intimidation, violence, and emotion. And within emotion, it's um, she had like a mastectomy. And so her mother wasn't in town, and the guy, her stepfather, tells her, he says, you know what? I'm concerned that your mother might have another lump in her breast. And so I really need to feel yours in order to get perspective. And so then that's how that started. That's the kind of mind, that sick, twisted mindset that pedophiles have, right? This is how they manipulate. It's all about them. Have all the power and kids don't. So it's difficult. And then of course it's so much the same dynamic, right? And then a lot of times kids feel that maybe they asked for it, maybe they should have told somebody. There's a lot of guilt and shame and embarrassment that goes along with children that have been molested. And it's the same thing because they were so manipulated, and God only knows what the narcissist, how they gaslight them. So awful, awful, awful stuff. Yes. Yes, it's the do you want to be special? It's this that would be fall under the charm, right? So it's that yeah, making a child feel really special. It's disgusting. Yeah, and Fisher says, "God, I hate predators." I do too. I really do too. I would be totally okay if they just rounded up all of those people and just put them on an island. Oh, I'm sorry, Cecilia. I'm sorry. That was not definitely not my intention. So, yeah, we'll move off that topic because I definitely don't want to trigger anybody any more than I already have. So, with that. Oh, okay. Okay. Good night, Cecilia. We love you too. Lots of love to you. Okay? And I'm sorry. I should have said something or just steered away from that. Yes, my intentions are always good. They really, really are. So, we won't talk about this topic anymore. I think it's inappropriate for I think it's too much of a trigger for too many people. So we'll just steer clear of it from here on out, okay? Because I think a lot of people go through it, and the reason I was wanting to bring it up tonight, I went into way too much detail with that. I apologize. Apparently, gosh, apparently. So Cecilia says I went full Flanders. Yeah, I think it's that's the hard thing with I make jokes too when I'm uncomfortable. I always joke my defense mechanisms are sarcasm and sleeping. Like I don't have a fight or flight. Like I have sarcasm and sleeping. Like that's it. Doug says, "Was it okay that I put Shetty on timeout?" Yeah, I think so. And that may or may not have been that person's intention, but I think it's 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 too triggering for too many people. So that would be, I think, a better conversation. And this is all a big learning curve for me too. So I think that kind of for 13 hours last night. Are you stressed? Are you having a lot of stress right now? Yeah. That's the thing, with I think with abuse of any kind, there's different people at different levels want to talk about, or that you want to share, or not. That's fine either way. S9 says most comedians say that they use humor to cover pain. I know I do. I think a lot of people do. You know, and I know I do. That's my go-to. I have found too, if my boundaries have been violated, and I still struggle at times with being assertive. And so what I'll do instead is I will joke. I'll make jokes about things that instead of just being assertive, because it's uncomfortable still. I love that. Pink Pixie says, I don't know what Chetty said. I missed it. But Cecilia, good for you for recognizing and verbalizing a trigger. That in itself is growth to self-care and being gentle with yourself. I agree. Cecilia says, I've been cycling between missing him and thinking about the lies and problematic stuff he put me through. It's a lot of cognitive dissonance. Yes. Yes. It is. It is. But so did you break up with him? She says, losing my support group, getting in a weird fight with my manipulative cousin about money she donated and was asking for back, my parents being invalidating as usual. I have been more mindful of this from now on. I hope you forgive me. So, okay. Yes. You are forgiven. Thank you. You know, again, this is all very new territory for a lot of us. And so we're very open about a lot of these topics and these conversations, and you know, that it's all part of abuse. You know, it's me not having clarity, I think, for the group and the conversations discussed. So you know, now that we know better, we do better. That's all any of us can do. So that's what we'll do. Cecilia says, no, I let him break up with me because I was afraid of what he would do if I left. And yeah, well, it sounds like you had a tremendous amount of insight with that and that you handled it really well. It's able to slow things down, and you know, for when you miss him list, because that'll really help to cut through that cognitive dissonance. Yeah, this is all practice. That's how the universe goes, right? It tends to keep giving us the same lesson until we can master it. And you're you're getting there. You're getting there. So she says, not yet, but I definitely will. Yeah, that really it does help. That for when you miss them list really really does help. I like that. Doug says light and peace to you. Chetty says hugs to everyone on here. We all need support. Yes, I would agree. I agree. I agree with your therapist. Cecilia says, I was joking with my therapist today about his smelly feet, and she said, I think you should think about that anytime I get nostalgic. Yep. The person that I had feelings for doesn't, like, they're two different people, you know? People are talking about the cute little gumdrop people on the chat. Yeah, they are cute. But it's okay. Like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to miss him. Like, all of that stuff is very normal, and it does pass. And to just keep reminding yourself, like, this, I'm not going to feel this way forever. I probably won't even feel this way in a month, you know? Stuff making me anxious. Yes. I think it's so important that we listen to our bodies and listen to ourselves, and get more in tune with those emotions. Yeah. Yeah, she says it's good as in I needed it, but it was a horrible experience. Hyperventilating and crying at the same time are no bueno. Yep. She said, funny thing is that he said while we were together, you'll get over me in a week. This guy really hated himself. Yeah. Well, at a minimum, it sounds like he is not emotionally available and can't have an emotional, you know, an emotional relationship with somebody who's not emotionally available. Not getting caught up in the pain body and observing emotions and feelings, and a lot of, and that's what sparked my Buddha board, was that book, The Power of Now, and all the different lessons and teachings he has in there. But he's got a ton videos. I love him. Plus he's super chill. Like, he just, and he's just really, he's cute and he's entertaining and he has a great sense of humor, and he's just really peaceful. Anything by him, I think, helps to calm a person down. I also watched a lot of comedy during that time. That helped me a lot. I think just it was a really easy way to just shift my state of mind to something totally different. So I and again, this was like, 6 years ago. I still am huge Dave Chappelle fan. And so, just like, and he's hilarious. That kind of comedy, just tend to get into these certain ruts of things that I like. And I don't expect, I'm that way with food. I'm that way with, like, like, music. It's awful. It's awful. Like, I always order the same thing when I go to a restaurant. I had the same music I'm like stuck in 1987. It's crazy. So with you, and I'm the same way with YouTube. So I tend to just have, like, certain channels that I watch, and I don't tend, I guess I'm not very adventurous. I don't know, but I tend to not explore outside of that. So, but there's a lot, like, there's a lot outside of, like, the forts on. Well, but again, this was like 6 years ago, and I don't think YouTube was like that big of a thing back then. But there's a lot. I mean, there's so much information on YouTube, and there's another gal. Oh, what is her name? Mindy. Her channel is called The Enthusiastic Buddhist, I believe, and she is fantastic. Talk about super chill. I think I want to say she's a Buddhist nun, and she talks a lot about different Buddhist principles, and I just love her. Like, she has fantastic energy. It's interesting. I mean, if you like to learn, like, I really like to learn, so I really enjoy her videos. She goes over different concepts. She's That kind of stuff is really great. I think about learning how to detach, and learning how to watch a situation unfold versus being involved in it. So I'll have to remember to link to her. But the enthusiasm 6 years ago. Yeah, maybe I should just say that I like I think I'm like late to the dance on a lot of things in life, and technology is definitely one of them. I covered this a little bit, like briefly on my year in review video, but yeah, all of this has been like the craziest learning curve because I don't keep up obviously with a lot of this stuff. So I didn't know about Instagram. I didn't know about, I mean, I knew that it existed, but I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know how to really use YouTube. I still don't really know how to use YouTube. I didn't know how to do a Facebook group. I didn't know how to, like, it was awful, awful, awful. I was so close to committing suicide just a few weeks ago. Then I found out about narcissistic personality disorder and realized I wasn't abusive and a batterer. What's the page name? So my my Facebook page is called, it's the same as my channel. It's called Thrive After Abuse. I also have a support group on Facebook. It's what's considered a closed group, which means if you join it, your Facebook friends can tell facing you, then odds are she's going to accuse you of abusing her. If she's manipulating you, she's going to be accusing you of manipulating her. If she's cheating on you, she's going to accuse you of cheating on her. This is very, very common. It's incredibly crazy making when you're in the middle of it, like when you're dating somebody like this, because especially if you've never had this happen before, it's so bizarre, and it oftentimes make people, I think we've all had this, and it's incredibly crazy making. So it's, and we oftentimes wonder, like, am I being this way, and I don't understand, like I somehow like lack the self-awareness to see that I, if you haven't already watched them, so I have a series called Red Flags of a Narcissist, where they will often accuse their target of being unreasonable, being irrational, being too sensitive, being the problem. And it can be really hard when a person's being manipulated at that level for them to think straight. And so I would encourage you to try to take like an emotional step back, and to ask yourself, okay, do other people have these issues with me? Like, have other people I've dated ever had these issues with me? Odds are probably not. And so I think it helps to do that like that. To take a step back. He says it's, he started confronting her more and more, and she got more and more accusatory. He says, I really wanted to marry her. Well, Frank, I think you really dodged a big bullet, because this woman sounds very problematic. And that's definitely, and I know that you loved her. I know that you had very strong feelings for her. But those kinds of people that have that kind of wiring in their brain, if a person doesn't have a sincere level of accountability, then they're not ready, willing, and able to change. Pink Pixie asks, have any narcs joined this group to see if we are discussing them? Mine saw my new name I created to join this group on my email before he was blocked. I'm afraid he'd try to find this. Lots of people join the group. I can't guarantee that they wouldn't. If he has access to your Facebook page. So what you may want to do, just to have additional privacy, is, well, first of all, okay, there's a support group on my website, which is it's what's considered an open group. Like anybody can see what's being posted in the group. However, you can choose whatever screen name you want to choose, so you have total anonymity that way. The Facebook group, so I will tell you though, it does help because we get a lot of people. We approve probably 50 to 70 people a day for the support group. So it's a lot for us. And oftentimes, if it's a brand new profile, that looks really suspicious. So if you have your picture, make sure that your picture for the group maybe is something like narcissist related. It's like a quote or a meme or something, or a meme about healing. So we know that this is not spam. Like this is a related profile that a person's, kind of gone into hiding. Police officers, software engineers, lots of very educated people. So this has one thing has absolutely nothing to do with the other. It really, really doesn't. This is not a reflection of you or your intelligence. So I have a video series on this. It's called Want to Know Why You Are Dating a Narcissist. If you look for that video, trying to think of an easy way to link that for you. I did a playlist if you're familiar with like how you know, it's basically, the concept that we're all born into this life with 3 different buckets that we need to get filled and keep filled. And we have the bucket of our physical needs, the bucket of our emotional needs, and then the bucket of stability, which is really the reassurance that the other 2 buckets are going to be getting filled on a continual and predictable basis. And so, if we're walking around with a bucket, and this is, very kind of simplified version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is really what this is. If we have I use myself as an example all the time because I think it helps. Okay. I went around for it become a vulnerability for me. And so when I encountered manipulative people that did the love bombing, where it was this whirlwind situation where they were everything I ever wanted, where it was this intense soulmate connection, we were spending all of this time together, that's how they were getting into my life. And that's why I had a hard time letting them go too, because it was that clinging to that level of emotional intensity because I was starved out in that area. So I gobbled up all of that attention and affection that they were. Sorry, I'm scrolling up here. Annie asks a great question. She says, is it possible that a healthy guy love bomb, or is it just what narcissists do? Healthy people do not love bomb. Period. End of story. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are an emotional manipulator like a narcissist or a sociopath. It could be that they are, although that really is like more reserved for that, like narcissists and sociopaths. Some codependent people can like love bomb too, like because that's part of the codependency, right? It's that clingy type behavior. So it's the wanting to spend, except codependent people, how it comes across is that it's the clingy behavior, and there's also that people pleasing element. So we might give somebody compliments, we might want them to really like us, but we're not trying to. It comes from a place of like insecurity, not from a place of manipulation, I guess. And I know that might kind of seem like it's splitting hairs, but the intention there is very, very different. So, whereas with emotional manipulators, it's designed to be all about them. Like their goal is to get that person kind of eating out of their hand. So Frank says, I love bombs sometimes. And I think they don't talk to a lot of people. And so they're really, really starved out. They're starved out for attention and affection. And because of that, they're really, really talkative, and they like won't let other people, like if you walk in there, they attach themselves to you and they won't let you go. And that's why. So that could be construed as kind of this love bombing, but it's different versus, and that's more of like this clingy, starved out, codependent kind of way of attaching to somebody, right? The love bombing, what I'm talking about is if you look at how cults work, and if you look at how online dating works, online dating scams, I should be more specific. So online dating scams, that's how they operate, right? They send out like 1,000 emails to 1,000 different people, and it starts off with this false flattery fast. And it's this sort of like, hey, but you can tell it's kind of like, hello, beautiful, your eyes are like emerald, like, your eyes are beautiful, they light up my soul. It's this real flowery language. They come on really fast and furious, and then they start wanting to talk to the other person all the time, and it's just this whirlwind. So very quickly, and it's their way of isolating their target. And so they very quickly, you're finding yourself talking to this emotional manipulator, you're texting them for hours upon hours upon hours every day. And so then what happens is, to the target of that, they're wanting to isolate, because if we're so starved out for this attention and this affection, we're going to be, which makes sense, right? Like you're going to go to the person that is love bombing you because it feels so good. I mean, it not only feels good, it feels healthy. A lot of people, myself included, when I experienced it, it was like, oh, finally, here's this wonderful man. He's everything I've ever wanted. He's Prince Charming. He's like my soulmate. And there seems to be no games. Like it's like fish just jumping in the boat, right? I mean, it's just, he was all in right away. Within 2 weeks, we're talking about being in love and getting married, and it just felt so right, and we were moving full speed ahead. But healthy people don't move at that speed. Either they are incredibly codependent and they have poor boundary issues, or they're an emotional manipulator and they have bad intentions there. So, hold on a second here. Can do, right? So, yeah, interesting. Let's see. I think I have like the fastest package out there, and I just reset my modem 2 weeks ago. I need like a tech department. It's just like what needs to happen, because it never ends. It never ends. That's hilarious. M. Fisher says, I need to get a new futon first. I would agree. This couch is really uncomfortable. Really, really uncomfortable. So new futon, and then I need to obviously do something with my internet. I just don't understand the issue. The futon does look nice. However, there's a giant bar that runs through the middle of the cushion. It's right where I sit, and it is not comfortable. So I do have broadband. Everybody's making fun of me. I'm not that tech savvy, I will admit, but I do have broadband. So I thank you. I'm going to probably not pronounce your name correctly. I for sure. Cecilia says, I need a new microphone myself, but I don't have a big enough subscriber count to justify it. Did you look up the, I have the ATR 2100. It's like $60 on Amazon. It's awesome. Like, I highly recommend that microphone. Frank says, no, I'm not trying to put you down. It's okay. Toxic Relationships No More says, Dana, do you have dial-up? That you've got mail. Oh my gosh. right? Like 1997 all over again. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. Well, Frank, I know that you're in a lot of pain right now, and I know that you're really in a vulnerable place and that there's a lot of different support groups out there. I always encourage people join a handful and see which ones resonate the best with you, because different support groups are going to resonate differently for different people. So, like I said, I have my support group out there, but there's lots of them on Facebook, and there's lots of men that are in support groups as well. So we've got a handful of guys in my support group, and it's fantastic. I'm biased because I think we have a, not just me, but we have a fantastic support group. But you know, just I encourage you to just if you're feeling really low, just to realize that suicide is just, it's never a valid option. You know, it seems like that's the whole appeal of suicide, that it'll stop the pain, but it just have no idea. Like, people just have no idea that this is a thing. But yeah, we often joke that these support groups, it's one of those things, like, it's the group that nobody really wants to join, but we're glad that there's so many other members. And yeah, that's very, very true. I think you're going to find not only a lot of fantastic support and feedback, but I think what's the weird thing with support groups is you're going to find a lot of like your kind of people there. Because just like NPD people tend to have this personality type, like they are this way, same with their victims and their targets. So we all tend to be like the same way. So a lot of us in the different support groups always joke about that. It's like, where have you guys been hiding my whole life? Because we just have so much in common. We tend to all get along. We have a lot in common. It's weird. And I think you'll experience that as well too. So I'm glad you made it here, and I'm glad you made it through the week. And celebrate your small victories and just know that you are not alone. Like, you are not alone in this. And this pain, it really will pass. It really, really will pass. So, and you really did dodge a huge bullet with this. Is not the kind of person that you want to marry or have children with. I think a lot of people here can attest to that. Like, it is just, talk about a nightmare situation. So Cecilia is signing off. I'm glad you stayed on, Cecilia, and I'm sorry that you've had a rough week, but I think that you did fantastic. So keep us posted. We'll talk to you next week, okay? And so lots of love to you, Cecilia, for sure. All of you guys for sure. I'm going to answer Alicia's question, and then we'll call it a night. How about that? She asks, Dana, how did you fill up your empty buckets of affection and love? I love this analogy. It's exactly how I feel. Well, that's a great question. So my buckets were already low. They were low from childhood. And then I didn't realize that was what was going on, but I had a pattern. I had a pattern of dating, not only dating emotional manipulators, but befriending them too. Like, pretty much every significant relationship or friendship in my life was with an emotional manipulator of some sort. And I didn't realize that until probably about 8 months ago. And then when I got married, I actually married a really nice guy, but I would say he was kind of emotionally unavailable. Like, we just didn't really talk. Super nice guy, nothing, not emotionally abusive, just emotionally like aloof. And he was military. We moved around all of the time. So it unintentionally became very isolating. So we were moving from state to state, and it was to the point where I didn't have any friends left. And so I didn't think about that when I divorced, but then I kind of jumped out of that ship, and next thing I knew, I didn't know anybody really, and I didn't have any strong connections to anybody. And it was an awful feeling. I didn't realize how much that affected me, because that had been my life for a handful of years, with moving around and starting over. And I thought I was a lot stronger than I really was. So now that I realize that this is what was going on, that it was these empty buckets and that I needed to work on filling them, really doing that, I tried, this is what I think a lot of people do. I tried doing online dating. I'm like, well, I'm really lonely, so I'll date. And that's a terrible idea, because that's a great way to get tangled up again with all of the wrong people that are giving you that love and affection. And it's because it's hard, because if we're starved out, that's when that cognitive dissonance sets in, and we start justifying and minimizing and glossing over red flags. And it happens quickly. That cognitive dissonance really does set in fast, like a fog. This is why, so like with Frank's situation, right? He's like, I'm a smart guy. Like, how did I get here? How did I get tangled up in that? This is how. So if we have these vulnerabilities, and you've got this person that's meeting this need, right? And we're so starved out. It's hard to be choosy when we're starved out. It's sort of like if you haven't eaten in 4 days and you come across a sandwich, a delicious sandwich, but it's in the garbage can at like a gas station, right? It's like, well, there's a lot of things that, I mean, that sandwich, it's amazing. It's got, everything that you would want on a sandwich, but it's in the garbage can. It's kind of like with an emotional manipulator, right? Like, there's a lot of things that are really good about him, but there's a lot of like deal breaker stuff there. If we're starved out, we're going to focus on everything that's going to meet that need for us. So if we're starved out physically, we're going to be focusing on, but it's a sandwich and I can eat it and I'm not going to starve. If we're nourished, right, and we're not hungry, we're not starved, we're going to be like, wow, that sucks that amazing sandwich is in the trash, and you're going to walk on. Like, you don't get tangled up in it. So how do you fill the empty buckets, right? So if like for me, right, feeling, I needed to fill it with love and fill it with importance. I joined a lot of meetup.com groups, because I live in Michigan. I'd recently moved to Michigan, and I didn't know anybody here. Like, talk about lonely. Like, that was I mean, I don't think my life it was like the loneliest pretty much a person could be. I mean, it was just so intense. I didn't know a soul out here. I was 6 hours away from knowing anybody, a 6-hour car drive. It was just awful. And even then, it was my extended family that I'm not really that close to. And so I realized I've got to do something. So I got on meetup.com and I began joining all these different groups, and I began getting really active with going to these things and meeting people and forcing a safe, neutral environment. So doing things like that, really just spending time with other people was huge, huge, huge for me. So, and everybody's going to have their own way that they're going to fill that. So maybe it's with animals, maybe it's with volunteering. Probably it's a big reason as to why I do this. But I've always known that I used to work at a domestic violence shelter like 6-7 years ago. So I've always been into advocacy and all of this. I've always had a passion and an interest for helping others my whole life. So I was a teacher, then I was an advocate, then I was then now I'm a nurse, right? And then kind of back to being an advocate because I do this. So it's things that I really, really enjoy. I really enjoy helping people. So that helps. It's a positive way, within the framework of healthy boundaries, right? Of helping and empowering, which is the new direction of the site, to empower other people. So you'll have to just think about what would work for you. Other places to go. Some people get that feeling of, companionship and love and feeling importance through, going to church or going to, there's a spiritual center that I go to that I really, really enjoy. And they have a book club and they do Reiki and it's all hippie woo woo. And so that's kind of my people, but it's just, again, Kevin just got here. He says, "Oh, just in time to catch the end." Yeah, we're calling these narcissists, these hair that we can't ignore. But odds are there's been a lot of smoke going on in our life for a long time. We just got used to it. So it was very eye-opening for me. And I think it's very eye-opening for a lot of people when they start looking around and they realize, oh, wow, well, I've had a lot of problematic friendships too. Maybe some problematic, I was getting bullied at work, or I was getting bullied at school, or I grew up in an abusive childhood, or that they had this childhood where they were either raised by an addict or an alcoholic, or a parent who was mentally ill, or a parent who was a workaholic, or a parent who was otherwise physically or emotionally unavailable in whatever way. So, once we start kind of connecting the dots and realizing that, then we can start working on our vulnerabilities, and then working on our self-esteem, and working on boundaries and standards. The thing is, though, it's hard to work. It's not even hard. It's like impossible. It's impossible to work on self-esteem. We've got to get our buckets filled. Like, we have to have our physical needs met, which are food, clothing, water, shelter, air, right? Basic physical needs met. We also need our basic emotional needs met, of like love, attention, a sense of importance, affection, basic needs met. Then ideally stability, right? So the sense that and or have personality disorders. The vast majority of my patients are either homeless, or they're close to being homeless, or they're in a group home. Like, these people that need a lot of assistance. And so if I were to talk to a patient of mine and they haven't, they're homeless, right? So they don't know where they're going to sleep that night. They don't know what they're going to eat. For me to have the conversation about healthy boundaries and standards, they're not even going to hear that, because and this is how our brain works. Like, our brain, we get tunnel vision, and because our brain it goes into like a survival mode of getting these needs met, right? And we've got to get these needs met before we can advance to that next level. So self-esteem is a luxury until we get those more basic needs met, because we're not thinking clearly if we're starved out. But again, like, the more in tune we can get with ourselves and realize, and cognitive dissonance is like our emotional survival mechanism. So we have physical survival mechanisms, right? So like fight or flight, feed, breed kind of things are basic survival type drives, mainly fight or flight, right? Like, so that kicks off. We know when that's happening. We know how we feel. The emotional equivalent of that, when we have, especially an emotional need that needs to get met, we have cognitive dissonance that kicks in. And cognitive dissonance is, it sets in like a fog, and it clouds our judgment, and it makes us basically try to normalize a situation, right? So back to that example of the sandwich in the dumpster. If I'm starved out, I'm like, wow, that's a delicious sandwich, but it's in a public trash can, right? Like, that's disgusting. It's not sanitary. It's probably going to make me sick. But if I'm starving, I'm going to justify that. And so I might tell myself, well, but it's not moldy, and well, I guess it's sitting on top of like the other trash, and well, it's not really that dirty, and well, I guess I could eat around parts of it. It's the exact same mindset transferred over to people. And that's why we gloss over red flags. It has nothing to do with being stupid. It has everything to do with being starved out emotionally. And there's our defense mechanism kicks in because our brain needs to get that need met. And that's another part of why it's so hard to let these people go, because they're meeting a need, especially if we've made our whole world this person, right? So if we don't have any friends, if we don't have any social life outside of them, then it's that much more difficult to let go, because they are our whole world. Delicious yet disgusting and unsanitary sandwich, I'm more inclined to let that go if somebody gives me $100 bill, right? Or if somebody comes by and they give me a clean peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I'm going to be more okay. Like now I'm not in that attitude of scarcity, right? So it's easier for me to put down what's not going to nourish me and pick up something that will, if I know that there's something that will. No, yeah, anybody can get the emotional bucket filled. Interesting. Nick says, good film called The Mask You Live In about being an American male. I'm going to check that out. That sounds interesting. The Mask You Live In. Abdul, I'm not going to say that correctly. I'm just going to go with Abdul. Says, hey, Dana, you're helping me a lot with your videos. Thank you so much. Well, good. I'm glad. And Shania says, Dana, thank you for your videos. You've helped through a very hard breakup. So I'm glad. I'm really glad that my videos have helped. And yes, Kevin says, I think men are less likely to be rescued, if that makes sense. That makes complete sense. And I would agree with you completely on that, right? So I think society there's this social pressure for men to be like the whole white knight thing, right? So for men to be the rescuer. And just like men can be a kind of like the two stereotypes, right? So like either men are abusers or men are rescuers. Whereas women really can only be victims. Like that's obviously to be a rescuer or an abuser. And so there's got to, like, if these are the three roles that we have to choose from, which is really what all of our movies and TV and media, music, all of it portrays, is that those are the three roles. We can either be the victim, we can be the abuser, or we can be the rescuer. Like any way you dice it, it's toxic. Like that's not healthy. So and a lot of people situation, even if they're being hit, because it's this social programming that men can't be victims. And so a lot of society will look at them and be like, well, what did you do to deserve it? Right. And the guy is thinking like, I didn't like, does anybody ever deserve to get hit? And I didn't. So it's just chat. I created a new name specifically for the support group, heading for higher ground. Very cool. Welcome, John. Yes, Frank says gender stereotypes suck. I agree completely. So, it's that's one big thing that I'm working towards with my channel. I didn't realize that was a big thing that I did wrong with my channel when I first started. Everybody had said, oh, you're doing this YouTube channel, it's really important that you become an expert on what you know. And that's how I started off. And then I very quickly started hearing from men that were saying, Dana, we're going through this too, please don't forget about us. And then I realized that men were watching this and realized that kind of the error of my ways. Like, this is not, I want to put a stop to abuse, and it's not, I'm not like only concerned about female victims or only concerned about children or only concerned about men or only concerned about animals. I don't want any living creature to be abused. Like I would, like, that's my dream. So it'd be nice to just put an end to that. And yes, getting rid of these ideas of what abuse is, because a lot of that's incorrect. And then who can be kind of how this goes down and what this looks like in motion. Because there needs to be so much more re-education about all of it. Frank says, "Oh no," he says, "Oh, that was not criticism. You're doing great." Yeah, I didn't take it that way. Was I get worked up over it because it bothers me. Nothing to do with what you said, but just society wise, that this is the year 2016 and we still that this is still a thing. Like this is still like this big of an issue, especially in like developed countries, you know, where there's tons of education, there's tons of access to education. We've got the freaking internet. Like, why is abuse still so not discussed and not resolved is bizarre to me. Yes. Frank says, I've been so isolated from my community where they will say they might throw themselves down the stairs and then get the guy arrested on false charges or check themselves. I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories from men. You know, it's a problem. And then what you're describing is called flying monkeys. And so then other people start giving them the stink eye. They start circling around to attack them. How dare you do this to her? And then it can really create a lot of damage in a person's life. So Shania asks, Dana, have you heard about narcissists that use witchcraft or symbols from the Kabbalah on their target? Often it's not uncommon for them to want to, you know, smudge their house with sage or to do some sort of cleansing or to get rid of a lot of the items, that there's this feeling of heaviness and evil that goes along with that. But I am a big believer in the power of goodness, and I think that we can harness that positive energy, and that light always wins out over darkness. Always. So, well, you guys, I have got to go to bed. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on this live stream. It's been really interesting. For those of you that are new to the live stream, the chat does keep going. So you are more than welcome to stay and chat for as long as you want to stay and chat. And I will catch you again. These live streams are every single Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They normally go for about 2.5 hours. We went kind of long tonight, but lots of really great questions and really intense, deep topics. So, yeah. So I'm glad we had the discussion that we had. So I'm going to sign off and get to bed, and just as always, lots of love to all of you guys. You are not alone in this. You are not crazy, and you can move forward and heal. Okay. So take care, be good to yourself, be good to others. Okay. Have a good night. Bye.